Broken Billionaire Boss, an Enemies to Lovers romance by Summer Ambrose. Narrated by Deb Foster. Excerpt. The interrogation room was dirty and poorly lit. The desk was made of metal, and the chair seemed like something that was pulled from a garage sale or from a dumpster. I would have to burn what I was wearing if I made it out of this. The table wobbled as I sat on the chair, and I started to rattle my brain for information that could help me. And that's when it hit me. I was not sure what they even wanted. Detective Brown now introduced himself. Shit, I guess he is the good cop. "Hi, Miss Walker. I am Detective Brown. How are you feeling?" I gave him a puzzled look, and he continued. "Can you tell us about the blood in the art room at the Brooks residence?" I was not sure what they wanted to know, so I asked, "What exactly do you want to know?" "How did the blood get there?" That was easy. "I don't know." "Do you know whose blood it is or where it came from?" Another easy question. Or better yet, why don't you tell me? I am always up for some good gossip. "I don't know." "Do you have knowledge of any incidents that occurred in the residence that could explain why there was blood on the floor?" Was this guy an idiot? Why the fuck would I know? "No, I don't." That's when the bad cop jumped in. "Do you think this is a joke? This is a murder investigation, and you are at the centre of it." He scared me, but I was not sure what he was talking about. Murder investigation? Who got killed? I sat frozen on the dirty chair and waited for the next question. This time, Detective Brown jumped back in. "Ms. Walker, I am sure you understand the implications here. We are just trying to help you. I am sure if I were an attractive young lady like yourself, I would have fallen for the charming billionaire telling me he loved me and would leave his wife for me." Now my jaw was wide open. They thought I was involved with Chris, and I was involved in his wife's death. My heart started racing. What did they know? Were there any cameras in the master bedroom? Did they see the video of our encounter? "Ms. Walker, if you tell us what happened, we can protect you. How long have you been involved with Mr. Brooks? We have eyewitness testimony that you and Mr. Brooks are intimately involved." My mind was racing. Who saw us? They could tell I was being cautious, and they wanted me to start telling them everything I knew, so they applied even more pressure. "So let's paint you a picture." Detective Parker stood up for emphasis. Rich guy meets struggling interior designer. He falls in love but still has a wife and kid at home. A rich guy like that, well, he can't just divorce her. He has to kill her. No alimony and no child support. Better yet, he gets to bring his mistress in and live happily ever after. The only problem is you are the loose end. Before long, he will be out shopping for your replacement and planning your murder. I sat in complete silence as these two detectives lay their case out in front of me. At that moment, things became clearer. They thought I knew Chris before his wife died, and they thought he was having an affair with me. Those two things I knew were completely untrue. I was curious about the blood, the music box, and how it did get into the art room to begin with. I wasn't sure what to disclose because I was afraid I may say too much and reveal our encounter in the closet and my pregnancy. They surely wouldn't believe we just met. I have to play it smart and keep my mouth shut and just listen. Detective Parker likes to talk. I will keep listening. "Whose blood is in the art room, Miss Walker? Is it Mrs. Brooks? Did you conspire with Christopher Brooks to kill his wife?" And with that, I started to think of everything I knew about Christopher Brooks. He loved his daughter. He was rich. And while I never witnessed any violent streaks, I was privy to him lashing out verbally. Is that the same thing? I was not sure what the right answer was, but in the middle of a police interrogation, how can I make a fair assessment? I started to think about Natasha and the fact that her mother was ripped away so suddenly. Do I want to be the reason her father gets ripped away too? I felt cornered, and I was not sure which way to turn. I could tell them everything I knew and walk out of the room in a matter of minutes, but that would mean Chris would have a long legal battle ahead of him to fight. My other option was to stay silent while they kept spinning tales of murder and mayhem with me as the leading character. Neither option seemed enticing. I was not completely convinced the story the cops just recounted made much sense. Half of it was made up and the other half seemed convenient. The only problem was, if I didn't tell them what they wanted to hear, my freedom may also be in jeopardy. It was Detective Brown's turn to start appealing to my sense of goodness. "Ms. Walker, I know you are just an innocent bystander in this entire process. Mr. Brooks promised you the world. He probably told you he was going to divorce his wife, not kill her. I can tell you are a kind woman. You just got dragged into this by a man you fell in love with. This is your opportunity to get from underneath this. Tell us what happened in the art room at the ranch." They both stood looking at me, waiting for me to say something. I gasped as I tried to keep my breakfast from spilling out my mouth onto the table. They both instinctively stepped back when my morning sickness took over. I was so embarrassed and apologized profusely as a janitor was called in to help clean up the mess and was scooping my bodily fluids off the metal table. The smell made me nauseous, and I had to close my eyes to center myself. Everyone was silent as the gentleman slowly cleaned the table and walked back out of the room. The silence gave me some time to think. What was I going to do? It was obvious to me that someone just saw us in the closet, and if I lied, that could mean perjury. I didn't think Chris was guilty of everything they accused him of, but something else was going on. There is no way a billionaire gets raided and hauled to jail in this town without some evidence. I was sure Chris had a team of attorneys working on getting him out. He would never spend a night in jail. On the other hand, I was screwed. I barely had 2 nickels to rub together, and without getting paid for the job at the ranch, I would have no money to hire a decent lawyer. Maybe if he knew I was pregnant, it would be different. I am such an idiot. Why didn't I tell him? It was too late to worry about that now. My immediate concern was to find a way out of this mess, and fast. As soon as the door shut, Detective Brown asked if I needed anything. I remembered that was the worst thing in an interrogation room, because they always use the empty container to lift your fingerprint. Damn, I sounded like a guilty woman. "No, thank you, but can I use the restroom?" I needed more time to come up with a strategy. Detective Parker stepped out and returned with a female officer. She escorted me to the female restroom and stood guard outside my stall, as if I was a convicted criminal. I sat on the toilet and felt happy to finally be by myself, even if I was sharing my space with the graffiti plastered across the walls in the stall. I knew they had someone feeding them information, and they knew about the master bedroom closet and probably about the office. They know nothing about the pregnancy, but they had information on the blood on the art room floor. They didn't mention the music box, and they didn't say anything about the evidence they had linking Chris to his wife's accident. That brought a few things to focus, and my options were clear. I had to tell them that we were sexually involved and everything I knew about the music box and the bloody carpet. Or stay quiet and hope to God all this just miraculously goes away. As I walked back to the interrogation room, my stomach was in knots. I walked in and took my seat on the dirty chair. I knew I had no more time to keep the detectives at bay. I had to say something. I started to speak, and both men leaned in intently to hear my confession. If you want to find out what happens next, click the link below to get your copy now.